What's up, beautiful people? Anonymous here. Hope you are doing great. So we are at the module 2nd of the Vital Masterclass, and in this chapter we will talk about the oscillator and its function. We will talk about the unison, the phase, the filter routing, warp modes, pitch, and many more things. It's going to be a lot of fun, so just sit back, relax, have yourself a cup of coffee, and let's just jump right in the tutorial. So first I want to talk to you about the unison, which is right here. And the unison creates the clone of the waveform coming out of the oscillator. For example, if I set the unison voice to 4, it will just create 4 copies of this saw wave. Right? And these 4 saw waves will be a little bit out of tune. So what it does is that it will create more stereo width and more weight to your sound. It's like when you and your friends copy the same assignment and change it a little bit so you won't get caught. Okay, the unison is the same thing. It just creates the same saw wave, for example, and detune it a little bit. So that makes the sound more interesting, wide, and more powerful. With the unison, we have the unison detune associated with it. And this detunes the copies of this waveform. We also have the detune power right here, and this basically controls the width of your unison voices. So you can decide where the power of your unison voices resides. So this was the unison. Next up we have the phase. In Vital Oscillator we have 2 kinds of phase settings. Number 1 is the starting phase, which basically decides the starting point of your waveform. If you set it to 0, that means that your waveform will start from the very beginning around this point. If you set it to 180, that means your waveform will start from the middle. And if you set it to 360, that means it will start from the very end. 0 and 360 are basically same. Next up we have the phase randomization, and this option changes the phase every time you play a note. Let me show you this with an example. To notice this function, we will need at least 2 oscillator or sound. So we have 2 oscillators here. Let's set one of these to 0, second to 0 as well. And let's break this note right here. So right now, look at the oscilloscope here. As you can see that we have the same wave shape every time, a simple saw wave. But when you randomize the phase of one oscillator, you will see that every time you will get a different wave shape in this oscilloscope. And that's because this phase right here is randomizing the position. So sometimes it starts from here, sometimes it starts from the middle, sometimes it starts from here. And that's why they both mix in different way and we get a different output every single time. So that's the phase randomization for you. Okay, now let's talk about the frequency morphing. We have various morphing modes here. First we have the vocode and the formant scale. And these options are meant to be used with the Vital's text to wavetable option. Okay, so when you use the text to wavetable and apply the vocode or formant scale, you will get different format for your text to wavetable sound. Let's take an example real quick. Let's create a text to wavetable and modulate it at 2 to 1. Right now it sounds like this. But when you use the vocode, it sounds like this. And with formant, you can change the pitch of your text to wavetable. Okay, so these 2 options are very useful with the text to wavetable. Next up, we have the harmonic stretch, and this function basically creates the resonance peak in your waveform. Okay, so these are the resonance peak in your simple saw wave. Vital achieve these resonance peak by shifting your harmonics away from the fundamental. Okay, so it basically shifts the harmonics away from the fundamental frequency. And while doing so, it follows the harmonic series. One thing you should notice here though is that the harmonic stretch does not affect the fundamental frequency, and that allows us to retain the original pitch of the note, because the fundamental frequency is the most powerful frequency among all, right? So the fundamental does not change. Same goes for the inharmonic. It creates some resonance peak, but at low intensity. Another difference between inharmonic and harmonic stretch is that inharmonic stretch creates a equal distribution of harmonics throughout the spectrum. So it gives you a balanced tonal sound. So as you can see, we have the harmonics equally spread out throughout the spectrum, but with the inharmonic, they are at the extreme right. Also, in the inharmonic stretch, we have both harmonic and inharmonic frequencies, although the amount of harmonic frequencies are more. The next function we have is the smear, and this is basically a granulizer effect. If I have to simplify it, it basically resamples this saw wave. Don't confuse it with a filter. This is a granulation effect, and it resynthesizes the overall waveform. It's like the time stretch for this saw wave. The next option we have is the random amplitude, and this option basically activates random harmonics at random amplitude, kind of like a noise resonance. This is really good for creating ambient sound, those horror sounds, and different SFX and FX. After that, we have the low pass and high pass filter, probably my favorite options among all. And that's because this low pass is a linear phase. Let me show you what it means. And this is really good options for those people who are using the Vital for creating the bass sound. So let's take an example and load a basic shape real quick and use 3 harmonics. Okay, so when you use the normal filter, let's use the analog filter. Look at the oscilloscope here and see what happens when I use the filter right here. Let's create a single note. So look at the phase of this waveform in this oscilloscope when I change the filter right here. As you can see that the waveform shifts away from its original position, its phase changes. But what happens when you use the low pass filter right here? Right, so it does not affect the phase. This low pass filter and the next one, the high pass filter, actually works on the FFT, the harmonics, instead of using a filter circuit. And that results in a linear phase filter, okay? So for example, if you are using the Vital for creating the bass sound, this will make the mixing process really easy. Second thing, this low pass filter and high pass filter works on the waveform itself. So it doesn't matter whether you are playing a D4 or D5 or D6. If there are 3 harmonics passing through this low pass, it will always be 3 harmonics, no matter what note you play. So it has various benefits. First, you get a linear phase. Second, you can save a lot of CPU on filter. And the third part is that you will get equal harmonics irrespective of the note you play. So that's the low pass and the high pass option for you. The next option we have is the phase dispersion, and this option changes the phase of individual harmonics except the fundamental, because if you change the phase of fundamental, that can create the mixing problems. So yeah, it basically changes the phase of each harmonics. And the effect you can see on the shape of your waveform. Use this function while creating sounds with sharp attack like pluck, bell, drum sounds, etc. It will give you a really good character. The next option we have is the shaper tone. This is a new one, and this option basically creates a constant increment in the pitch by shifting the harmonics up or down. and the new harmonics takes place in the place of the shifted one. If I have to simplify it, you will feel like the pitch is constantly increasing. Look at the frequency analyzer here. You will see that the original harmonics shift away and the new harmonics comes in to take their place. Okay, so this is a really cool option in the Vital. Next up, we have the time skew, and this option creates a pseudo phasor effect by applying a series of bandstop filters. The width of the filter decreases with the amount. Look at the analyzer here. Okay, so we have a series of bandstop filter whose width decreases when you increase the amount. So these were the morphing option here. Now let's talk about the warp modes which you can access from this knob right here. So first up we have the sync, and the sync option creates a self-synchronization of the oscillator. This function increases the play speed when you turn it to the right and stretches the waveform when you turn it to the left. It sort of looks like you are increasing the pitch, and on the left, it looks like you are stretching the sample around the center point. One awesome thing in this function is that you can actually change the phase of your waveform, which is really cool because you can align the phase and fine-tune them. The next option we have is the format, and this option is same as the synchronize but with a smooth fade. If you look at the difference in both these, you will see that the format option creates a fade around the corner, and this avoids the discontinuities of your sound. The next option we have is the quantize, and this is a sample and hold effect that reduces the sample rate of your waveform, as you can see right here. Quantize has a great advantage over the natural sample and hold effect because quantize work on the waveform itself, so it follows the note and the pitch. While in the sample and hold effect, the ringing pitch is always at the same place irrespective of the note. Okay, so this is the quantize. It can reduce the sample rate of your waveform. After that, we have the bend option, and it basically bends the waveform around the center of your waveform. This is a bidirectional function, okay? So you can bend in either way. After that, we have the squeeze, and this option bends the wave shape towards or far from the center point. This is also a bidirectional function. Next up, we have the pulse, and this option breaks the waveform right from the middle point and shifts the left and right parts away from the center. This is, you can call a bidirectional pulse with modulation effect. After that, we have the basic FM and the RM function. So these were the warp modes in the Vital. So these were the unison phase and the modes here. Now let's talk about the basic pitch and the routing in the Vital oscillator. In Vital oscillator, we have two oscillator controls. First, we have the semitones, and the pitch is set in semitone from -48 to +48. Right, so one octave has 12 semitone, so that makes 4 octave in the positive as well as the negative direction. And the next up we have is the cents, which is from 100 to -100. And in one semitone we have 100 cents. So this is a fine-tuning option, and this is a octave or semitone pitch option. Another cool function we have is the transpose snap. And the transpose snap, as the name suggests, snaps the keyboard notes to a particular value. All the notes will be triggered at the frequencies of the nearby selected transpose note. For example, if I select this one right here and use the global snap, no matter what note you play, it will trigger this particular note right here. Okay, so each time you play a different note, it will snap back to this particular note, which is the global snap. Then we have the oscillator level, and oscillator level sets the amplitude of the waveform in the wavetable. This does not set the value in decibel, but rather on a scale of 0 to 1. Okay, but the effect of the parameter is same as decibel. So this sets from 0 to 1. Okay, this sets the amplitude of this waveform, not in the decibel. And here we have the basic panning function. Right here we have the oscillator routing. You can send your oscillator to filter 1, filter 2. You can set it to filter 1 and 2 as well. So that creates a parallel filter. You can bypass the filter and send the oscillator output directly to the effect, or you can bypass the effect as well and send it directly to the master output. So these were the options in the Vital oscillator. In the next video, we will talk about the filters, and I will also tell you about the sampler in the Vital. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.